and what does the law say? What are my responsibilities under the law? We provide an unbiased opinion of what the law says. And in doing so, what you need to understand is we have no enforcement responsibility whatsoever. We're not going to hit anybody over the head with a big kielbasa. I'm not the ADA police. We're providing information. So if you remember nothing else from today, 1-800-949-4232 is a hotline that can be used nationwide to be put in contact with your ADA center for your particular region. And feel free to use this. Oftentimes people will call, they're not sure if their rights have been violated. But it's always better to call, and we have a very knowledgeable TA staff that will talk through these issues with you. And yeah, maybe your rights have been violated. Perhaps they haven't. Perhaps there is another law that is more applicable to your situation. The Air Carriers Act, for instance, or the Fair Housing Act. We get a lot of calls about service animals and comfort animals, and what's the difference, and what protections might be available under the ADA, for instance, or not. Protections that you would receive with comfort animal, those sorts of things. So that's the number one thing we do. The second thing we do is we provide literature. We provide resources for people, and those are both online as well as paper copies. Excuse me. We provide a lot of information on all aspects of the ADA. As Peter mentioned, there are 5 titles to the ADA. And oftentimes when the general public thinks about the Americans with Disabilities Act, what they think about is Title III, right? Places of public accommodation. How do I get into a shop? How do I order food at a restaurant? That sort of thing. But really there are 5 titles that are applicable, and we provide information on all those. The other thing we do, the third thing we do, is we provide training. We provide training in real time. Peter and I just spent 2 days at Mississippi Valley State University in Itta, Mississippi, where we were providing, one day was on campus accessibility. The second day was had to do with accommodations students might have in the classroom. So we also provide training online. We have a number of training courses. If you go to our website, if you search Southeast ADA Center, southeastada.org, you will find links to all of our web courses. Many of those are free. Some are at a nominal charge, but nearly all of them are free, and they come with credit. So if you need continuing education credit, this is a resource for you. I know in Kentucky we've been talking a lot about continuing education for supported employment providers, for instance. And those resources are approved by Kentucky Voc Rehab as continuing education resources. So that would include links to Title I, to ADA Basics. There's a Title II tutorial. There's a training program called At Your Service, how to welcome guests with disabilities into your place of business. Peter and I have been talking with his colleague, Larry Logue. We're going to do a training webinar, a 4-part webinar on the history of the disability rights movement. That will be included in that as well. The fourth thing, and what Peter wanted me to talk about, although I kind of went the other direction for a few minutes, is our research. Neidler told us when we were refunded for another 5 years last year that 15% of our resources had to be used for research purposes. And so in looking at going back to that idea that I mentioned a few minutes ago about the geography of the Southeast and the high concentration of poverty, we know that there is a distinct correlation between poverty is a result of disability, and disability is a result of poverty. We know that in the Southeast United States, 3 of the 8 states in our region have people with disabilities who are the most unbanked and underbanked, and not even people with disabilities, but people who don't identify as having a disability. We are the largest concentration of people who are unbanked and underbanked. Number 1, Mississippi. Number 3 is Georgia, if I remember my statistics right. Number 5, Kentucky. So, where do people bank? What do they do if they don't use traditional banking services? They go to predatory lenders, right? They go to payday loan places. They go to pawn shops. And essentially that amounts to usury. We're talking about 28, 29 and higher percent interest on short-term loans for people. So people, especially people with disabilities, are unbanked and underbanked at a tremendous rate. So why is that? Okay, what are the practices in place at banking institutions that may prevent people from disabilities from banking? That's what we're studying. It's called the FROG. It's the Financial Research Opportunity Group. We are a 5-year research study that will look at banking accessibility in the Southeast. We have a 3-part study. The first part of the study is a quantitative study. We have developed, and it's in its final phases now. We have developed an evaluation instrument that will allow us to go into financial institutions and assess their banking practices. And this includes both physical banks as well as virtual banking. So, as Peter had mentioned with the Target case, looking at website accessibility and app accessibility of those banking products. So we're going to look at, if I have low vision or blindness and I want to open an account, are there large print options for me? Or are there screen readers in the bank? If I am deaf and I am going to buy a car, are there interpreters available for me to in order to negotiate that contract with the bank? So that's the first part of our study. And the most interesting aspect of this is that we rely on what's called participatory action research. These are PAR teams. And PAR teams are teams that are made up of people who have disabilities. So we will have someone who's a wheelchair user. We will have someone who is deaf, someone who is blind or has low vision. We intend to include someone with intellectual disability or autism on these teams. And then the last member of the team will be someone who does not identify as having a disability. So these teams will actually go out and do this research for us. They will use this 76, 78 some odd element instrument that we have developed both online and physically to go into these banks, figure out how accessible they are, where those banks need to improve. The second part of our study then is a qualitative study. So based upon those PAR research members, based upon their experience with using these banking services, we want to get a sense of what their personal experiences were. What sort of trouble did you encounter? What worked well? What didn't work well? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to conduct research just for research. We want to make substantive change in the banking industry, especially in the Southeast. We want to make it possible for people who might otherwise use a predatory lender to go to a traditional bank and be able to use those same banking services as everybody else. So, and that leads me to the third part of the study, which is a contextual study. We've heard a lot about food deserts in low-income areas where there just aren't any options. So people then will go to, the convenience store or the gas station, and the fare probably isn't very healthy at those places. Much like those food deserts, there are banking deserts in communities. So we are going to do a contextual study looking at where banks are located in relation to where concentrations of low-income people are, and where those pockets of poverty are. We're going to look at transportation resources. If those banks are not located in those areas, how easy is it for you then to get to a bank? And then once you use the public transportation, how far then through the community do you need to maneuver in order to use those banking services. So we have a frog team. We have a research team that just brilliant people. I need to stop and tell you I'm blessed to work for Burton Blatt Institute, because I've just met some amazing people. Our research team, Renee Cummins, Mira Adya, and then myself, Michael Morris. For those of you who know Michael, just a brilliant guy. And Pam Williamson, that's the core research team. In addition to that, we have partners. We have partners in each of the 8 states that will develop these teams for us. And along with those teams, we also have banking partners. So Bank of America, Regions Bank, Wells Fargo, FDIC. Those are some of our partners on the financial side who are interested in these questions of financial disparity and what we can do. So that's kind of an overview of Frog. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I did touch on partners, and if I got one more thing to say about partners, and then I want you to open up for questions, because I know that's important. The Southeast ADA Center cannot be in each of the 8 states all the time, so we rely on a partnership network. We have affiliate partners in each of the 8 states that conduct work for us. We'll do training, we'll provide information on ADA. In Kentucky, the partner here is at the Human Development Institute. Jason Jones is our network affiliate in Kentucky. Really a good guy. Comes to us from Voc Rehab prior to HDI. We also have partnerships with APSE, the Association for People Supporting Employment First. These are our national partnerships. We have partnership to provide training to Best Buddies International. We also provide some, or we also have some regional partners, and probably the partnerships that we are valuing the most right now are the partnerships we are developing with historically Black colleges and universities, the HBCUs. For the last year, we have had a partnership with Morehouse College in Atlanta, where a student intern from Morehouse will come and work in our office in Atlanta. We'll learn about the ADA, we'll learn about the law, we'll learn about just basic customer service and how to treat people kindly. We had a student last year, Matthew Ramsey, who really just impressed us so much that he's now working at BBI on the Syracuse campus. So that opened up some doors for Matthew. Matthew is someone who identifies as being blind. So we are thrilled to have him. We're also developing a partnership with Spelman University. The president of Spelman happens to be a Syracuse alum, so it's a good fit for us. And as I mentioned, Peter and I spent 2 days at Mississippi Valley State, HBCU in Itta Bena, down in the Mississippi Delta. So those are some of our valued partnerships that I wanted to make you aware of. I'm going to turn it back over to you for questions.
Stay up here. Let's open it up for questions. We have about 15 minutes, Walt, right?
Walt, if I can
and
have a bottle of water.
Laura and others, feel free to take questions. And anybody in the room or virtually? Yes, and please introduce yourself. Can they hear her? Oh.
Really loud.
Here.
Well, the folks online won't be able to hear you, so let's wait till Walt can.
I'm Christy Stambaugh. I'm the Director of Aging and Disability Services for the City of Lexington, but that doesn't mean anything. What is the National Resource Center? I Google searched it and 1,200 came up. So which National Resource?
Oh, sorry. National Resource Center for Supported Decision Making.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks.
Okay. That was a hard one.
That was a soft one.
Yeah. Anybody on the phone or virtually?
We do have a question virtually.
Okay.
Okay.
The question is from Jenny, participant online. We have run into situations where medical practitioners won't treat individuals with intellectual disabilities unless they have guardianship. What can be done if a doctor won't treat because they say a person doesn't have the intellectual capacity to make their own medical decisions, but there is no guardianship in place nor wanted?
Who wants
You
that
know,
over there?
Call P&A, number one. But, Jenny, What's that? Yeah. Jenny, P&A is going to answer that, but that's a very common situation.
We had a representative. I'm Jeff Edwards with Protection and Advocacy. I guess 10, 12 years ago, we had this very case. You have a case right now? Okay. And this gentleman had a cerebral palsy and did have and used it as a communication device. But what had happened, he had lived with a Medicaid waiver provider after his parents had passed away. He went to seek medical. They took him to the doctor. They would not treat him. And eventually what happened is a power of attorney was not good enough in this situation. A sister-in-law was found. His brother had passed away, and she became his guardian. And they ended up on, he had pneumonia, ended up on a ventilator, and they were attempting to make him a DNR as a result of this, and had placed him out of state. So what we did was intervene on the state level and pull the guardian in and work on that issue and argue with the hospital, because there was a quality there. He was clear in his case direction. The hospital brought in a speech pathologist and a psychiatrist to interview him. They questioned the clarity. He was very clear. He wanted to be he wanted to breathe. He wanted to continue to breathe. He did not want life-saving treatment removed. He wanted to be on antibiotics. He had developed bed sores and everything you get first time in his life. And but what they did, they contacted P&A, and we had to be prepared to move forward into court if we had to. And intervene. And as Camille was saying, she's had that case with dental issues with a gentleman.
On that particular case, I worked with the facility on educating them, one, on communication, how to communicate with people with disabilities. And in this particular case, the person did not talk. It was not verbal. He was nonverbal. And so, but trying to work with him and educating them, just because he does not speak like you or I doesn't mean he can't communicate. And in that case, just through education, we were successful in getting the much needed dental. So that one, luckily, we were just able to negotiate and work with.
Yeah, and the other client, the guardian moved him to Northern Illinois. So that's one way to get us out of your hair, is to.
Hold on 1 second. Laura was gonna.
I was just going to say, we have, because this is such a big issue, we have a grant proposal submitted to look at using support decision making in the medical setting, to use research to develop a tool to help medical professionals be able to feel more confident that a person's making an informed decision.
Jenny asked what the number for
1-800-372-2988. Our website is kypa.net, where you can complete information and referral. We will be back in touch with you. You can call the office or email us within 3 business days.
Another question? Thank you, Jenny. Anybody else? Ash Hall, did she have her hand raised, or he? No? Yes, please, take the microphone.
Let me bring the mic.
I'm Jamie Gitzinger. I work for the Cabinet for Health and Family Services here in Kentucky, and I had heard you talk about the culture of coordinated supports. And just to be considered for that opportunity, what goes into that consideration?
We are partnering with the state agencies, and we were approached by the state agencies to work with them. We put in some in-kind, and there's I think it's a very modest grant to us, and we have partnered on that. Jonathan Martinez is the guy to talk to about that. I'll give you my card, or if you send me an email, delighted to explore that with you.
Thank you.
And it's had some very positive results already just from new links of communication about personhood across agencies. Thank you. Any last comments or questions? Yes, right in front. Did I mess that up?
So this is more of a personal question. My name is Holly Hatfield, and I'm the registrar at the law school here at UK's campus, and I'm also an MRC CRC. And so it's actually specific to Mr. Blank. In the law school, we have a lot of individuals who identify as having disabilities. Specifically, we see a lot of individuals with depression, anxiety, and learning disabilities. And so in terms of working with these students who are transitioning from their professional degrees into the workforce as attorneys and as lawyers, we want to make sure that we're giving them the best support that we can in order to get them there. What I've seen is that there are two kind of modes of thought in this process, where a lot of individuals would prefer these students not to have accommodations or to lessen the accommodations throughout their time in law school to kind of prepare them for what they call the real world, in terms of where law firms wouldn't really quite provide those kinds of accommodations. Do you have any opinions about that? Regarding, okay.
Well, that's a very good question, almost a setup for me, because our newest grant is from the American Bar Association. And as a matter of fact, we've been working on it for about 9 months. In the coming weeks, we'll go out the first of 4 surveys, extensive surveys and analyses, to 400,000 members of the American Bar Association to understand the situation of lawyers with disabilities across this country. We're also looking at the American Bar Association has a commission called SOGI, Lawyers of Differing Sexual Orientation and Gender Identities. We're also looking at the situation of individuals in that group as well. Why? Because the ABA prior has done 2 large studies on so-called implicit bias in the profession, first involving race and secondly involving gender. They've asked us now to do these first-of-kind studies, which look at less visible characteristics, in this case, often hidden characteristics, as you talk about, cognitive disabilities, as well as physical disabilities, as well as the important intersection, because we're all not monolithic, between race, gender, sexual orientation, disability. And eventually, we want to back that down to law schools to also understand the prevalence, the situation there. The survey is going to talk about organizational culture, no surprise, types of accommodations you've needed or experienced, the ways in which you've been accommodated, ways to mitigate bias, to mitigate bias in the workplace. And we're very excited about it. It's going out to about 70 members across the country Monday, as a matter of fact, to our working group of representative individuals in leadership positions, and then it's going to be quickly followed up in the coming weeks to everybody, and we'd certainly like your feedback, and you certainly can pass it on to faculty members and others who are interested in this topic. So thank you. That's a very good question, and very pressing question too, because particularly in the legal profession, there are issues of stress, substance abuse, mental health conditions, and others which often go underlooked. Thank you. Any final questions? We have time for one more. Okay.
Got one online.
One
then
more.
I have a final. Well, make it 2 because I got a final wrap-up question for you.
Okay.
This question is from Jenny online, and
A different Jenny?
nope, same Jenny.
Same Jenny. Hi,
And-
Jenny.
Any time to talk about HR 620 ADA Educational Reform Act?
Is this the bill to change the notice requirements, I believe, with regard to the ADA? The ADA was amended in 2008 under a law called the Americans with Disabilities Act, Amendments Act or whatever, and it basically broadened the definition of disability and overturned some restrictive Supreme Court cases. In the present climate, we need to be vigilant. there is a bill pending before Congress which suggests that the name of the act is a little bit misnomer, I think it's fair to say, which is to rein in what people believe are serial or so-called frivolous litigation by requiring more stringent notice requirements to defendants before an ADA lawsuit can be brought, particularly in regard to like small businesses, like hotels, restaurants, and so forth. And the essence of that bill is to, some would say, make it harder to bring this sort of litigation. Others on the other side would say maybe it's fairer. Depends which side of the street you fall on. Some people would say, well, how many years has this law been in effect now? 25 plus years? And you're still hemming and hawing about making your facilities accessible? Others would say, well, there are these people that just go around the country and file lawsuit after lawsuit. My own sense, Jenny, is that it's hard to know in this political environment whether or not that will pass, but I do believe that there does exist some people who take advantage of the law, as under any law. Nonetheless, to restrict the law unnecessarily, particularly as the world still needs to be more accessible, and the stories I hear, I don't think is necessary at this time. So that's my 2 cents, trying to be as diplomatic as possible. With this Congress and this president, we're in new territory, so it's hard to know what will happen in that regard.
Well, and that leads me to the final question. Many of the great movements supported employment, supported decision-making. That this comes about by being disruptors of the system. So putting your crystal ball on for a second and thinking about disability law and policy, what's next, especially in this environment, but maybe even beyond this environment?
In the American environment,
Yes.
of course, we're in uncharted waters, as I've said. It's a politically different environment than I've experienced. I spent with fantastic colleagues 10 years litigating and writing about web accessibility, and there are recent court cases, believe it or not, which come full circle and suggest perhaps the web is not covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act. In my view, we're in a time of extreme vigilance is needed. It's not a time to relax. There will be efforts to further narrow the law. There will be many people who will need assistance on their basic civil rights. If this new health law goes into proposed health law commences, we will see terrific challenges, I believe, with regard to people receiving Medicaid and other sorts of services. We'll go to block grants, and state governors will have much more discretion with regard to how services are supported and paid for. Not everything is bad, not everything is good. So the crystal ball is a little fuzzy now, because I think it's fair to say it's a new day. And in many ways, an old generation is passing, the Tom Harkins, the Dick Thornburgs of the world. And we'll need new people like yourselves, Jenny, and others to step forward. Jenny Hatch, Don Perkle, Ryan King, and others of the disability community and their advocates like PNA to stay vigilant at this time. And I hope that the Southeast ADA and BBI will play a small role in helping in that. Thank you all for a fantastic afternoon. I wish we had more time for discussion. We certainly always learn more from you guys than we say about ourselves, and I hope that there'll be future trips to Lexington. I also want to thank, of course, Walt and HDI, who were fantastic hosts and a very important player, of course, in this community, along with PNA, government, and many others. So thank you all very much. We'll look forward to future conversations, Walt. Thank you.